Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're tackling something pretty crucial, especially for those of you out there dealing with realities of keeping livestock fed in those tougher areas of Africa, where drought can really throw a wrench in things.
Yeah, it can get rough.
We're taking a close look at this article, Hydroponic Fodder, a sustainable solution for livestock feed in rural African villages. And honestly, the stuff in here is pretty amazing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the whole drought situation, it's a massive issue.
Oh.
And the impact on livestock, people don't always see that side of it, but it's huge. When those traditional feed crops just dry up, it's a nightmare for farmers. And honestly, it ripples out to the whole community.
Right, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
So walk us through it. What actually happens when those usual feed sources, the corn, the hay, they all disappear because of drought?
Well, picture this. You're a livestock farmer, right? You're in a rural village trying to make a living. Suddenly, bam, drought hits. Feed prices go through the roof. You're stuck. What do? Buy that crazy expensive feed and risk losing your farm. Sell off some of your animals, which means less income later on, or just watch them starve. None of it's good.
Tough choices, for sure. That's where this whole hydroponic fodder thing comes in, right? It's this idea of growing feed, but without using soil. Instead, they use this method called hydroponics.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Basically, they use water, but it's all nutrient-rich in a super controlled environment. And get this, it uses something like 80 to 90% less water compared to regular crops. I mean, that's got to be a total game changer, especially in places where drought's a constant threat.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly efficient. And the reason for that is how these hydroponic systems actually work. Think about it. The plant's roots are literally sitting in this nutrient-packed water. No soil means no water evaporating away or running off. Plus, the whole system's a closed loop, so they're recycling that water too, cutting down on waste even more.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And it's not just the water savings, is it? You don't need these massive fields either, right? You can grow this stuff in a shed, even a greenhouse, right?
Exactly. That's a huge advantage. You can have these layered shelves, often made from stuff they find right there in the village, like bamboo or even old wood. Then they put trays on the shelves for the seeds and that nutrient solution.
So what kind of seeds are we talking about?
It depends on the area and what animals they're raising, but you'll see a lot of barley, wheat, maize, stuff like that. And that nutrient solution, it's like a special recipe to give those plants everything they need to grow strong.
Okay, so we've got the setup, but how fast does this stuff actually grow? Because time is money.
You're telling me, and this is where it gets really cool. This hydroponic fodder, it's ready to harvest in just a week, maybe 10 days tops. That's a constant supply of fresh, super nutritious feed, even when the drought's at its worst.
That's insane. I can see why that's such a big deal, especially for farmers who are just scrambling to find enough feed for their animals.
Yeah, it's a game changer. And it's not just about speed. The quality of the feed is awesome, too. This hydroponically grown stuff, it's easier for the animals to digest, and it's loaded with nutrients, even more so than traditional feed. So you get healthier animals, more productive animals, more milk, meat, eggs, you name it. It's a win-win.
Okay, so for the farmers and for the animals, it sounds amazing. But let's be real. How much does all this cost? Can these farmers actually afford this? Especially when they're already hit hard by drought?
That's the big question, right? I mean, yeah, there's the initial cost of getting everything set up. But this article, it really emphasizes that in the long run, hydroponic fodder can actually save them money, especially when you compare it to the crazy cost of traditional feed during a drought. Let me give you an example. Let's say a 50-kilogram bag of maize feed during a drought, that could easily cost you $25. That's a lot, especially for these small farms. But with a hydroponic system, you could grow a similar amount of super high-quality fodder, and it would only cost you about $10.
That's a huge difference. It's like having a secret weapon against drought and those crazy feed prices. But how do we make sure this technology actually gets into the hands of the people who need it most? Those farmers in these rural villages across Africa, how do we actually make this happen for them?
Well, that's where it gets tricky, right? Because you can't just plop down the same system everywhere and expect it to work. The article really stresses how important it is to make sure these solutions actually fit the needs and the resources of each community. It's got to be specific, you know what I mean?
So like what kind of livestock they're raising, what materials they've got available, even what kind of problems they face day to day. It's about giving them a tool that's actually going to empower them, right?
Exactly. And this is where these community cooperatives, they come in. They're a big part of making these hydroponic fodder systems both accessible and sustainable.
Okay, I'm curious about that. How do those cooperatives actually work? I mean, on the ground in these villages,
Imagine a bunch of farmers, right? They get together and they pool all their resources, their knowledge, their skills, even some money to create this shared hydroponic system. So they all split the cost of setting it up, maybe using those local materials we were talking about, and then they work together to like keep the whole thing running. It becomes a resource for the entire community,
It's like a community garden, but for animal feed.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But what about the technical stuff? Do these farmers, do they need special training to operate these systems?
Hydroponics, it does take a little know-how, but it's not brain surgery or anything. The article talks a lot about how important those training and education programs are. So these farmers, they get the skills they need. They learn how to choose the right seeds, how to make sure the nutrient solutions are good, how to keep an eye on how those plants are growing, even how to troubleshoot if something goes wrong.
So they become like mini experts in growing their own feed.
Totally. And a lot of these training programs are really hands-on, so they get to practice, get comfortable with the whole process. It builds their confidence, too. They really take ownership of it.
It's so important, right? It's not about just giving them technology. It's about giving them the knowledge and the support to make it work for them.
Yeah.
But there's got to be challenges, right? What kind of roadblocks do these farmers run into trying to get these systems up and running?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime you're introducing something new, especially in rural areas, there's going to be bumps in the road. One of the big ones is getting those good quality seeds and the right nutrient solutions. That stuff's essential. But setting up reliable supply chains, especially if these villages are way out there, that can be a real headache.
Yeah, it's like you need the whole ecosystem to make it work.
Yeah, totally. And then there's the issue of ongoing support. I mean, yeah, hydroponics is relatively easy to manage, but sometimes things go wrong. And you need someone who knows what they're doing to come in and help you fix it. Having access to, like, trained technicians or even just people in the community who've been doing it for a while, that can make all the difference.
Like a hydroponics help desk.
Exactly.
So what else comes to mind when you think about the challenges?
Sometimes it's just getting people on board with the idea. Any new technology, it requires people to change how they think about things. You got to deal with the skeptics, the folks who are resistant. It's about building trust, showing them the real tangible benefits, making sure they feel comfortable and confident, giving this new approach a shot.
It's meeting them where they're at,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Understanding their concerns and showing them how this technology can actually make their lives better.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, hydroponic fodder, it's not about replacing traditional feed altogether. It's about finding that balance, integrating this new solution into how they already do things, building a feed system that's more resilient, more diverse.
It's like blending the old and the new, respecting traditional knowledge, but also being open to innovation. I love that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what about the bigger picture? Where does hydroponic fodder fit into this whole push for sustainable agriculture in Africa?
Ooh, that's a great question. And that leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive. We're going to be talking about the wider impact of this whole thing, for food security, economic development, and environmental sustainability in Africa.
All right, so we're back, and we've been digging into this whole hydroponic fodder thing. It's pretty clear this could be a real lifeline for livestock farmers in Africa, especially when drought hits. But it seems like the benefits go way beyond just, like, getting through those tough times, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's not just a temporary fix. This hydroponic fodder, it could really help create some lasting positive change. It could really contribute to sustainable development for these communities in the long run.
So it's about building a more resilient future, not just reacting to a crisis.
Exactly. Think about it. When farmers can reliably feed their animals, good quality feed that they can afford, those animals, they're healthier, they're more productive, which means more milk, more meat, more eggs, more income for those families.
It's like a direct boost to their economic well-being.
Yeah.
And I've read that women are often the ones who are really running things with livestock in these communities. So this could be huge for empowering women, too.
Absolutely. And when those incomes start to rise, it creates this ripple effect. Those families, they can invest in their kids' education, better health care, maybe even put some money back into community projects. It's like a domino effect, but in a good way.
It's amazing how something as simple as changing how we grow feed can have such a huge impact on people's lives.
It really is. And don't forget about those water savings. We talked about that earlier, how much less water they need. That's huge, especially for those regions where water is already scarce.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Using less water for feed production means there's more water for everything else. It can help prevent soil erosion, even help keep the whole ecosystem healthier.
Exactly. It's like hitting multiple birds with one stone. It's a great example of how sustainable solutions can tackle lots of problems at the same time. And it fits perfectly with that whole global movement toward climate-smart agriculture. Hydroponic fodder, it's a way to adapt to those climate changes, but also to help lessen the impact.
It gives me hope, you know? Like we can actually find ways to make things better, to create a future where everyone has enough food and we're taking care of the planet at the same time.
I agree. But the big question now is, how do we scale this up? How do we make this happen everywhere, you know? How do we take these successes and make sure every farmer who could benefit from hydroponic fodder has access to it?
That's the million-dollar question. What needs to happen to make that a reality?
Well, it's going to take a lot of different things. For one, governments and those big international organizations, they need to step up with more funding. We need money for infrastructure, for research to make sure these systems are working for specific regions, for those training programs we were talking about.
It's about creating the right environment for this innovation to really take off.
Exactly. And we need to make sure researchers, NGOs, and those local communities are all working together. That way, we know the solutions are going to fit each specific region. What works in Kenya might need to be tweaked a bit for Ethiopia or Mali, you know?
It's combining that scientific know-how with the knowledge of the people who actually live there and empowering those communities to make it their own.
Right on. It's got to be a movement, a groundswell of support for sustainable agriculture. That's what it'll take to really transform things, not just for individual farms, but for entire regions.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. It's so inspiring to see how human ingenuity can solve problems like this. You know, when people come together with a genuine desire to make things better, it's amazing what we can accomplish.
It shows you the power of collaboration.
It definitely does. And it leaves me feeling optimistic. Even with challenges like drought and food insecurity, we can find solutions. We just need to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for those innovations that can change the world.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So, thanks for joining us for the deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop looking for those solutions that can make a real difference.